Wait for it, and we're live. Beautiful.
Live.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Apex Podcast, live stream style. I am your host, Jon Almasy. As always, if you see me staring off into the distance, it's because I have a huge LCD monitor behind me. Because apparently in our studio we need 15 displays. So I have one to my left, one behind me, and I'm live streaming currently from my laptop. So we'll give a couple of minutes to let people trickle in from the alternate platforms, but we should be live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook right now. And we are sitting here today with none other than the Abigail Barlow. For those of you that don't know who that is, you're going to find out relatively quickly here. But if you spend any time on TikTok, you'll have a pretty solid chance of figuring out who she is. She is the artist behind songs such as Crazy Girls and James, two of which are your highest performing ones right now,
yes,
if I'm right.
Very well.
And then some of my personal favorites like Emotional. And
Emotional is like my favorite, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite ones. But Abigail, or Abs, I'm just going to call you Abs. I don't want to feel like saying Abigail the entire time.
We're not formal here.
Perfect. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell the audience who you are, where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Abigail, and I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. And now I live in Los Angeles and moved here when I was 18. So now I'm 21, so I've been here for 3 years, just doing the music stuff.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So we're, let's see here. I have all of these streams going. Let's see if we have anything on Twitter. Beautiful. And our YouTubers. So if you guys have any questions, just so you know, I can see your comments and I can make them pop up, boop, just like that. So if you do comment and you have any questions for Abs, just go ahead and shoot them into the YouTube comments or the Facebook comments, and we'll try to address those later on in the stream. But for now, I'd like to just go ahead and get this ball rolling.
Let's do it.
So for those of you that have been listening to the Apex for any length of time, you know that we like to take a little bit of a deeper dive into things rather than just talk about superficial stuff. Mm-hmm. So everybody knows about Crazy Girls. That is one of those things that just probably was... we'll get to that. We'll get to whether or not that was purposeful or a freak accident. But what I'd like to start, right? You said that you were born and raised in Alabama.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why don't we talk about a little bit, just tell me about your family and a little bit about your childhood.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Alabama with 3 sisters, and I'm in the middle, so I'm the second to youngest. And my parents are doctors. So we grew up really very, very cautiously, but also they were so supportive of art and music. And I grew up around music all the time because my dad was a musician for a hobby. And he is very, very good at what he does. But I think he always wanted, his children to share his love of music that he had, because it's like mentally healthy. Music makes me mentally healthy. So I grew up just surrounded by it, and I did theater in high school a lot. And so I kind of grew up knowing that I wanted to be on the stage. I didn't know that I wanted to write music until my dad kind of pushed me towards the piano and said, you want to be an artist, you need to write your own music. And from there, I just kind of developed this like intense passion for it. And it is like therapy in the way that, if you're feeling something like a strong emotion and you write about it and you just turn it into something positive, it all becomes beneficial to you in the long run.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's heartbreak or something hard you're going through, you can look back on a song and it's beautiful because it's all real and authentic and honest.
Right.
So that started when I was like 16. Started growing my social media audience from home. I was online schooled for 3 years in high school, finished early. So I had a lot of free time to learn how to produce music.
And so my little plug for that is that, see, everybody, like, just because you're homeschooled doesn't mean that you turn out freakishly awkward or socially weird. Okay.
And also I think it's because theater was kind of my, social aspect of my life. All of my friends were from theater. And I did so much of it that I was always surrounded by people just like me. So yeah, I became very outgoing. But yeah, so I did a lot of just writing and working on myself because I knew if I wanted to do this, I should start early. I should, really commit myself when my brain is at its most absorbent. Is that absorbent stage where you can just like be a sponge? And I did that until I graduated high school and told my parents like, hey, I want to move to LA. And they were like, okay.
That's awesome.
And they were very supportive, and I'm so grateful for that. I think that's one of the main reasons that I've been successful so far is that I have such a strong support system.
I can 100% attest to that. Without a strong support system, it's like fighting an uphill battle.
Yep.
And that hill is muddy.
Yeah. It would be near impossible for me because I'm someone who needs that support to really because I always have this deep-rooted feeling. I think it's because I'm a Scorpio, like that all of the things that I'm feeling are maybe not correct. Like maybe I don't really ever know where I stand. And so to have family who have always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself, was so beneficial.
Yeah. Well, we'll go ahead and let's see here. It looks like Ella is homeschooled as well, and you helped inspire her to release her first single, and she's only 14 years old.
Ella, that's amazing. Congratulations. That's so wonderful. I'm so proud of you. And you can do it all yourself, girl. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and we'll get into that too, like doing it all yourself, which is part of something that I think is so cool. So with the family support and everything like that, two of the artists that you pointed out when you were talking about your dad were Elton John and Billy Joel. Can you talk a little bit about why those two are so important to you?
Yes. So my dad plays the piano. He's very, very good at it. I'm not as good as him because I can't really read music, but he's a genius at reading music. And he played very heavily because he had their books, like their song books. So he would just play Elton John and Billy Joel my whole childhood. So that's kind of the music, the soulful music, the honest music that I grew up listening to. It's just so good. Like their music's just so undeniably wonderful. And
it's raw. It's just raw.
It's very raw.
Yeah.
And, growing up with that sort of music made me, even though I loved pop music, I know that there's a way you can combine the two. You know what I mean? And technically they are pop, they were very popular in their time. Right. But the pop we know changes every 5 years, basically, the sound does. So what I love and the sounds I love and the production I love lends itself to that honesty. It just takes a certain ability to combine the two. And that's what I've been really just trying to hone, is like that skill to be able to be honest, but also really catchy and also, dynamic and interesting to listen to.
Yeah, that's a very, like, the word dynamic right there, I think just encompasses all of that into one thing, where learning to be somebody that can convey sometimes even like the example I always use is something sad in like a happy tone.
Yep.
It's so mind boggling, but then when you're listening to it, I mean, you say it's a therapy for you, but for the listener, it can also be a therapy, which is something that I've heard from multiple artists.
Exactly. Because I am a listener, and that I started as a listener. As a teenager, I loved music, and I loved top 40 hits, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I know people have some idea that music isn't good because it's catchy. There's a reason it's stuck in your head, and I think like being able to really, really have a listener's ear on my music as well is beneficial, because I sort of developed it from listening to so much pop music. So I kind of know when something sounds good or when it doesn't,
Right.
So that's good.
Now, when you talk about pop music, right, something that I thought was, oh my God. Okay, so my buddy Mike just hopped in here. He said, I've watched your TikToks. Music sounds great.
Thank you.
And then to follow that up, you're definitely better at me than singing, which I will gladly pass that torch over.
Come on. Anybody can sing. That's another thing. Anybody can sing. I always say that.
Yes, they can. So my dad always says that if you were born with a good voice, right, you have to sing loud and give God praise for the fact that he gave you a good voice.
Exactly.
If you have a horrible voice, you sing louder to get back at him.
And sing a lot. Because honestly, I when I was a kid, I did not have the control I have today or the tone. That was all a developed thing because I sung so much. So I think I am like in full belief that anybody can sing if you work at it. If you want to be good at something, all it takes is really, really hard work and dedication.
Do you know how awkward I was the first time I ever hosted a live stream or a podcast? Horrible.
Yeah.
If anybody goes back and listens to my first couple of episodes, I am so awkward. But now we're 50, 60 something episodes deep. It's a little bit different. But
Right.
please, for the love of everything, be graceful when you're judging the first couple of episodes of this. So we started talking about like, the mixture of pop and everything, right? And a lot of people think that pop singers, for whatever reason, like you said, they're kind of looked down on for whatever reason.
Yeah.
An example I always use is like, hey guys, Ariana sang on Broadway, prior to being a pop singer. And like, now, do I think that she needs to let loose a little bit more because she kind of holds back? Like, you can feel the power that she's holding back. But it's because she has so much control that she can take that voice and turn it into something.
Exactly.
And your background, right, is in a lot of musical theater.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't we explore that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that I love Ariana and I would talk about her for days. So like, forgive me if I just start to ramble, but I think that woman is one of one of the strongest women, given all of the circumstances and things that she's been through in a public forum, and the way that just everyone can just comment on her life and like they know her and what she's been through. And I think her new music, the things on Thank You Next, number one of my Desert Island albums. Like, if I were to be stranded on a desert island, it would be Thank You Next and Cosmic, the Bazzi album. But
okay.
It's because they're no skip. It's because it's so honest. And in the way that maybe you see it as holding back, I see it as her growing and her going through something so traumatic that it doesn't need to be forced. It doesn't. I think for a long time, she was controlled by producers and people who sort of forced her to use that power, maybe even when she didn't want to. And I think now that she's at the point where she could drop a song at midnight and all of us would listen, she knows that she doesn't really have to do anything she doesn't want to do. And the way that she makes her art is very specific. I think that there's a very clear, straight line to where she's headed as an artist, and it's all in her control. And I think that's so wonderful, especially for a female artist,
Oh yeah, this album is definitely my favorite Ariana album by far, and for the same reasons. And like, the control piece of it is when I first heard her as a singer early on, right? It's almost like there's this guy Jesse Kramer, right, that sang, and you can tell as soon as the waves hit the microphone that he had raw power in his voice. Absolutely. And as that song progressed, I was like, oh my God, like, please, I'm just like vying for you to just like let it fly. Right. And that's how I felt when I first heard Ariana sing. Like, you can tell that power was there. Yeah. And then she started like progressing throughout the career, progressing. And now with Thank You Next, it's such a dynamic balance.
Yeah, it is.
And you can tell like some of the songs, she's just like letting it rip. And then other ones, she has like this
intentional.
Yeah, we could spend the entire rest of the live stream just talking about Ariana Grande. Ariana. But so your background in musical theater, when did you start performing? Kind of, because when we talked, prior to the live stream, you said that you developed this like tunnel vision right early on in life, and musical theater is all you wanted to do. So why don't we start with kind of like the first thing that pushed you into theater, and then we'll develop that tunnel as it progresses.
Okay. So the first time I ever really wanted to perform, I've been through a lot of different activities, and my parents never wanted us to be bored. That was the thing. They were like, if you say you're bored, we're going to sign you up for some sort of activity, which I think is very helpful and has been helpful for my creativity too.
Oh yeah.
So at first I was a gymnast. I did gymnastics when I was like, younger kid, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then after I sort of got bored of that, I wanted to do competitive dance. So I did that for like my whole elementary school years until like 6th grade.
That explains being able to cut it up.
Yep. We still got it. I've never given up on that. But then when my sisters started to do musical theater, and being in shows, and I got to see them perform in musicals and sing, dance, and act. I was like, you can do all three at the same time. What am I doing?
What am I doing with my life?
Right. Like, why am I just picking one?
Right.
So I asked my parents if I could do that, and that it was history from there. Like, I did it until I graduated. And I think it was because I'm kind of a natural leader, and there was a program where you could, for high schoolers, it was year round. So you would just do theater pretty much every week. And we would do like 2 shows over the year, and then they would do like musicals throughout the year that you could audition for. And so I just started auditioning for all of them, and I did it so much that it almost became a job. Like I said, treat something like it's your job, it kind of becomes your job. And that's when I told my parents, like, look, this is really what I want to do. I know what I want to do. I know that I want to go to college for musical theater. Actually thought I wanted to go to college for that, and let me online school and finish high school early so that I can go ahead and do that. And
how old were you when you told your parents this is what I want to do for a living?
10th grade.
10th grade.
10th grade. I was like, this is just seems like my path, and the only thing I'm really good at. You know, like, I just couldn't see myself going to school for anything else.
Right.
And
that's fair. That
was just sort of the route that I always thought everyone went on. I didn't really think it was a possibility to not go to school, and maybe I thought I needed a degree in something. So I really started to just throw myself into that, and had tunnel vision, really. I just didn't really see music, even though I loved music. I was growing a social media following around singing pop music. I didn't see that as ever being a possibility. I was like, it is such a hard industry to break into. There's no way I'm going to be able to get my foot in the door. That's just like a pipe dream. And that was truly the dream that I had when I started growing my social media. I was already doing musical theater and thinking about college and all of that. And then I did a program called Young Arts, which is in Miami. And that's a whole thing. That's kind of where I discovered that I wanted to do music and writing pop music as a career.
Right. Yeah. If I remember correctly, there was actually a distinct moment down in Miami that you remember kind of coming together.
Yeah, I'll talk about it. So it's an application process, and I kind of want to just touch on it for any high schoolers who are in the arts and are maybe interested. Is
it just youngarts.com? What is the website?
Youngarts.org.
Youngarts.org. All right. And for everybody that's listening, I'll go ahead and post that in the comments for you guys to look at.
I think it's either youngartsfoundation.org or Young Arts. Let me just make sure. But it's a scholarship program, basically. But it's cash money if you win the finalist. So it's not really like it would go towards a school or anything. But it's all the arts, so it's multiple categories, and it's like an application process online. So like there are 11,000 applicants across the country, and it's just like a wonderful opportunity for young artists to come together and collaborate. So I did the pop vocal category, and was not expecting to get in. I was like, this is just I barely even wanted to audition, because I was like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to get it, and it would be really embarrassing if I didn't. So like one of those things that you like want to go do, but you're not going to tell anybody about it just in case you fail. Right. And my mom was like, you're going to do this. And I was like, okay, fine. So I submitted last minute, and then I was a finalist, and I was so surprised. And the whole time I went there, I was like, I do not belong. Everyone here is so fantastic. What happened? How did I get here? And we got to collaborate with the songwriters, because there's also a songwriting category. And I met this wonderful artist. Her name's Paris Alexa, and she's still creating music. She's killing it right now. And I was just supposed to sing her song that she had already written. And then I developed a crush on someone in the theater category. And I was like, ugh, boy drama. I had to talk to her about it. And she was like, let's write a song about it. And I was like, really? Okay. So I sat down with her, and it was just like an electricity in the room when I was writing with her. and it spoke to my heart in a way that like it felt like God was talking to me. I was like, this is it. It was like, this is what you need to be doing. It was so fulfilling in a way that like still gives me goosebumps, because like it just felt so natural, and like it was what I was meant to do. And from that moment on, we finished that song, and I was like, that's it. This is all I want to ever do for a living ever, is write music. And that was very new to me, because I really was a stranger to that before then. And then I came home and just poured myself into it. I just prolifically wrote and wanted to produce pop music then, because that I was like, okay, so how do I make it sound like the music on the radio? You know, how do I add beats? How do I add synthesizers? And it's not just piano. And how do I make it sound professional? So then I dove into another passion of mine, which is a big part of my music, and producing, because I'm a control freak, I have the ultimate control over my music and how it sounds. Right. So yeah, it gave me so much confidence, and I felt so confident doing it. Sometimes in theater, I felt a little nervous, but when I'm writing a song, there's just like nothing better in the world, you know, or anything that I'd rather be doing.
That's writing music is very intense, like emotion wise.
Yeah.
I've never, I'm not a songwriter by any means. But I do write a lot.
Yeah. Poetry's the same way.
Yeah. And so like the poetry that I write, or like any of the blog posts that I write or anything like that, some of the ones that I've written, especially lately, I just have been really trying to tap in. And the thing is that when you unlock that piece, like, and it starts to flow, it's like there's nothing else going on. I mean, there could be a hurricane and you're just locked in the zone.
I love
that after feeling is just like being able to say, I did that.
It's the best. It's like so cathartic, because is that cathartic?
Yeah, that's the right word. Yep.
Cathartic, because you go through all of this and our minds are always moving so fast. Mine is. And I have so many ideas and I feel things very, very deeply. I'm very sensitive and I'm an empath to my core, and everyone around me affects my mood and how I feel. And that's a lot to carry as a human. You know what I mean? That just like the energy that just affects me constantly. I try to not let it, but it's pretty impossible because it's just who I am. It's my nature. And so one of the things that has really helped me cope with that is writing, because I can't carry that around all the time, you know, because it just makes me unhappy. So when I can really put energy into something positive, even if it's a negative experience, I always learn something about myself. I always come out of it feeling way better than I went into it. And that's why I say it's like therapy that I don't have to pay for, that I get paid to do, you know?
Right, exactly. Do you know who NF is? Nathan Feuerstein? He's a rapper. So, I mean, his entire thing is like real music and like being raw and everything like that. And his entire like album premise, he's one of those people, in order for me to listen to music, it has to be intricate.
Absolutely. Right? Me too.
I cannot like the fact that 6ix9ine came out with a new song and it's like blowing up right now makes me so upset with humanity. And I watched like 30 seconds of the video and I was like, I can't do this. This is making me lose. I'm losing brain cells watching this right now.
Oh my God.
But NF, on the other hand, he has these, I think he's at 4 albums right now, right? He started out with like Mansion, where he talks about the intricacies of his mind. And then he moves into like a therapy session where he's talking about counseling. And then he goes into Perception, which is what his perception of life is after going through therapy.
Wow.
And then he goes into The Search, which is him trying to find himself after all of that. And all of the albums is one giant cohesive storyline through all 4.
That's my favorite thing. That's kind of, I'm sort of developing something like that, because my songs that I've written are pretty chronological to my life. And the fact that we went through this big pandemic this year, like right before, it was like everything was happening positive, like really exciting things. I wrote a song that kind of blew up a little bit on TikTok. I developed relationships with people in the business, and then all of a sudden everybody was at home and told to stay at home, and we couldn't move. So like I all of a sudden was blessed with a writing camp of just me pouring myself, like not having any distractions, and being alone with my thoughts. And that can be so
scary.
It can be scary, but very, it can be healthy if you take breaks and don't allow yourself to be consumed by it. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm starting to be consumed by this. I should probably take a break. I went home to see my family. But there is something to be said about someone just completely opening their diary and saying, here, read this to everyone, like I think it's great.
He blows my mind because he talks about like his mom ODing. He talks about his dad physically and mentally abusing him. Like in the song Mansion, he has this room inside of his house, right? His mind that he always keeps locked because inside of that room are the memories of his abusive father.
That's such a fantastic analogy.
So intricate, right?
Wow.
And so I have people texting me right now, like, I am so living for this NF conversation. Shout out to Emily Popio. But there's anyway, he's one of those artists that I could talk about for 400 hours.
I'm about to go straight listen to all of them in succession. So
yeah, you definitely need to. I want to review.
Yeah. I'll give it to you.
Okay. So after we moved to LA, you moved to LA. Obviously, I'm in the Midwest. You moved to LA and you started going through this writing stuff. Let's talk about like when you started realizing that you could use social media as a testing ground, because you were really focused on writing. You're starting to put stuff out. We talked about the moment that you decided this is, what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Is there a moment that you can think of after you moved out to LA that it shifted gears again?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was growing it was still Musical.ly, not TikTok yet. And I got to LA and I was still writing so much, and I wasn't aware that you could write things or write music and just put it out. Like I thought it was a much more deep thing and I would have to copyright things. Technically, and for every writer knowing this, technically you can pay for a copyright on your music, but technically the second that you write it down and you like have an original thought or an idea and you voice memo it is copyrighted. Like that's the second. Nobody knows that. I think it's like people think it's like some
weird elaborate process.
Yeah. And you can, basically publish your music with a sort of like a music licensing company or anything like that, like ASCAP or BMI, and register your songs there, which I do. But it's really that simple. And I didn't know that until very recently. And so I just kind of sat on basically a 600,000 person following for like a couple years, really, because Musical.ly was really not the place for original content. It was mostly like lip syncing and beauty videos. Yeah. And so I was creating all these sounds and people were actually using my sounds. That's how I became big on Musical.ly, was that I would just make all these original sounds that people would lip sync to. But I spent a few years not really knowing if I was good enough to do this, because it's a big talent pool out here. It's a very saturated market. And I think I was a kid still that was a little naive, and I had a following, but I didn't really have any knowledge of the industry or the business. I had a manager who, we never signed contracts or anything, but he also never really did anything for me. And so I was just like, okay, well, where am I going? Where is this headed? So I just, I started hustling and performing a lot with not a lot of, I guess, return. I wasn't really making money.
Now, before you push on beyond that idea, when you say hustle, I want you to explain to people what you were actually doing.
Yeah. This is just an example, but I was setting up my own shows here in Los Angeles, and every Saturday and Sunday, I would go to the Anaheim Farmers Market, which is about a 2-hour drive. I would be my own roadie. So I had this huge 86 key weighted piano that I took with a stand and these big, huge stereo speakers because they didn't provide them. So I had to bring my own, and my loop station that I used. And I would just haul it all with me to Anaheim, and I would perform for like 2 hours, like a 2-hour set, original music, covers. And I started creating relationships with people there. And yeah, I loved doing that. It was like, it was so much work, such hard work, but it didn't feel like hard work. It felt like I was like living my dream. And I was just so grateful that I got to do that every week. And everyone was so nice. No one was impolite. All of the vendors were so kind. And that was just a great experience and like the best kind of hustle, you know?
And those moments, right, where you can look back and you're like, I'm sure when you like tell people, and people that are watching this video are going to be like, driving 2 hours, hauling all your own equipment to play at a farmer's market,
Yeah.
you know, every Saturday, Sunday. I'm sure there's days where it was hot as hell.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Outside for sure.
in Anaheim.
Yeah. And so like you're out there, you're sweating your ass off, you're hauling all this stuff, you're doing your thing. That's what makes or breaks people.
Yeah.
Right there. Those situations. And when, you know, we talked about this beforehand, and some of our listeners know this story, but this studio that we're sitting in right now is, I mean, 1920s, 1930s themed speakeasy.
Love it.
Right.
My favorite.
We drove down. I'll show it to you after we hop off the live, but we drove down to South Carolina and back in one day. Like, me and my co-founder found this stuff on Facebook Marketplace.
Wow.
We threw a U-Haul onto my truck, drove 23 hours total down to South Carolina and back. He got us stuck in like an hour and a half of Charlotte traffic, but that's a different story. And we came back, and like every time we tell people that story, they're like, what the hell? Like, you guys did what?
Why?
Right. Why would you do that? But then they come to the studio and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And so like that storyline, I'm such a big proponent of, even if it sucks, you know, if it's something that you've got to grind through, it's something you got to gut through. I always tell people, think about what this memory is going to be like 2 or 3 years from now, when you're looking back and you can tell people, yo, listen to this. You want to tell me that I'm not a grinder? I'm not an OG that was willing to eat dirt at the beginning. Let me tell you about the Anaheim Farmers Market.
It's a hard business, and I think it's so saturated that you have to be willing to like sleep in your car for this. Like if it's because to be able to do something for a living that you love is such a privilege. It's such a wonderful thing that everyone deserves, but you have to work hard for that, and you have to be able to like see there are people that go to work and are doing it because they have to make ends meet, and they don't necessarily love sitting at a desk or, you know, putting in the hours that they are. But the fact that like I'm doing that and I really want it and I'm not going to stop until it happens, will make you do anything. I will work as hard as I must for this to be a reality. And then it becomes reality when you are working that hard. And, so yeah, the farmer's market I performed for high school sometimes during lunch. And yeah,
that's so cool.
And like everywhere in Los Angeles. Like I went to Palm Springs. I drove like 3 hours to Palm Springs one time to perform at Palm Springs High School.
Jeez.
It was so great. It was like literally 108 degrees outside. It was so hot. But it was wonderful. And that was really one of the only times I ever like drew a crowd at a high school. But somebody like promposed. They asked me to like cover a song, and you know, so they could do a promposal. Just like so many memories of times where I was like, this is just wonderful. And this is just like a fraction of what it could be. You know what I mean?
Right. You're like, I'm not even there yet.
I'm not even there yet. And I feel
I'm enjoying the journey already. Yeah. And so like for me, you know, stuff like this, having these types of conversations, I'm like, I'm having so much fun doing this. I can't even fathom, what the future would be like, because this is so much fun as it is. And I'm in a tiny incubator office in the Midwest. Right.
I'm looking back on the days where you just, had your head to the grindstone is like so important. But
getting your roots.
Yeah. And at a certain point, I was like, okay, there are millions of ways to make this happen. There's a million little routes to the finish line, and this is starting to wear on me. I'm really working hard with and seeing no like I'm not seeing the fruits of my labor. So I was like, okay, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So I was like, let's reassess. Let's see if there's another route or something that I could be doing that I'm not taking advantage of. And this was actually like last year, like that this happened. So I had been sitting on my Musical.ly following, and then it became TikTok. I was in a relationship. I was preoccupied and you know, it was a first love situation that just didn't end very well. And all of a sudden at the end of it, I was like, I really haven't written much music at all. I kind of lost myself and lost what was important, forgot why I came here. And I think we all have those moments. We all go through that one time in life where we just are not ourselves and we learn so much from it. Mm-hmm. I don't regret it. I think it is completely one of the reasons why I am back on it in such a major way, is because when you have that moment where you just have a crisis of identity, it makes you never ever want to go back there again. Mm-hmm. You know? So at that point, I started revisiting writing. And I think Crazy Girls was the first song I wrote coming out of that relationship. And I was like, you know what? This is a really good hook. I was like, you know what? I bet I saw people like on TikTok. At this point, this is when I knew that I could start writing music and putting it on TikTok because, mm-hmm. you know, Yellow Hearts was big. And I was like, that was a TikTok? A dude. And now he has a record deal? What am I doing?
Yeah, even Old Town Road, like that was straight up TikTok's more, or Falling. You know, all of those songs.
I started to see that TikTok had a power that nothing else in the industry had. Like
I have a whole playlist on Spotify dedicated to TikTok bangers.
Oh, like, all the top hits were made famous on TikTok. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I was just like, there's no way I have to try to revive this following because I'll be remiss if I didn't. So I put up a little clip of Crazy Girls, and it went it wasn't viral, but it went pretty viral. It got a bunch of likes, and a lot of my favorite TikTokers were like, release this now. Mm. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't think that would be the response.
I'm pretty sure it's like everybody's response at this point, because like I posted that duet video of you singing Trust Issues, and they're like twitching. They're like, I thought this was a release video. Why did you post it? I'm like, oh my God, I just wanted to invite you to the live stream. Stop attacking me.
People are truly angry. I'll get to that too. We'll talk about trust issues and all that. But so yeah, I wrote Crazy Girls. That happened, and then it was over the Christmas break last year, and I was like, I don't know. I need a mixer. I need someone to help me mix and master this because I produced it, but I don't know how to mix and master. It's a whole nother story. If I had known how obsessed I'd be with music, I would have gone to school for mixing and mastering, just engineering music, because it's such a good skill to have.
Yep.
But so I contacted my friend Pascal, who I think has commented before, but he is my mixer, my masterer of my music, and he helps me produce. He added all of the drums on Crazy Girls and all of the drums on James. Really helps me in that process. But I contacted him out of the blue, and I was like, look, I need you to help me. I've got 7 days. We need to release this song on Friday. Can you help me? And he was like, yes. And I was like, great.
Full send.
Flawless. So then it was over Christmas break. It was so annoying of me to ask him to do that on Christmas break, but he was so kind, and we sent things back and forth, and then we got it released. And it has done better than any other song I've ever released. It got on a Spotify playlist, which I like literally peed my pants about. I was so excited. I didn't submit it for playlisting, so they found me and put it on, and now it has over 500,000 streams, which is bizarre to me. Bizarre.
Yeah. When you start to get into those types of numbers and stuff like that, your brain's like, what?
It doesn't like compute.
I wonder. So I'm gonna ask you a question, because I recently went through this type of thought process. I wonder if you kind of experienced the same thing, where you're like, spend so much time with like the nose to the grindstone.
Yeah.
Right? Staring at the floor. I mean, just like getting trampled on over and over. And like, what are you doing with your life? You should get a degree. Why are you chasing this? You should go do something else. And then you start to get to where like inside of your brain, you've seen that vision for so long, but nobody else has. And then you get something like 500,000 streams plus.
Yeah.
And it starts happening, and you're like, whoa, 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 hold on. Like, okay, I've had this vision for a very long time, and
Yeah.
now it's happening. And like for me, all of this started moving, and I was like, I'm not quite sure how to deal with this. Like,
Right.
I've been expecting it to happen, but I never actually really thought, I don't know if it's, I never thought I'd actually be able to pull it off, or I didn't know if the universe was going to be willing to give it to me. But like, then it started happening. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. It's
happening.
It's definitely a change in the tide for me. And honestly, with what you said about, people constantly telling you, you can't do this, or what are you doing? You're crazy. I really had that internal monologue. That was always what I told myself. And that I wasn't good enough to do this, and that there are people that are way better, and that this is just a crazy pipe dream that I would never be able to achieve. I was writing all of my music for a long time to please an audience. So like every line I would write, I'd be like, is this catchy? Are people going to listen to this? And that is the quickest way to write terrible music, because it's not honest. It's not for you first. And I think after that relationship, and after just losing myself completely, I needed to be honest in my music. I had spent a year and a half being scared to write a song because I couldn't be honest with myself. I was telling all of my friends and family I was fine, and everything was perfect. And so I couldn't release it and show them how terrible things had been, like, or how miserable I was, because then they'd know, and so I couldn't be honest with myself or anyone around me. And so when I started writing music again, there was this level of clarity and honesty that I think my music has lacked from the beginning. And with that response, and such a gigantic response, it actually gave me a path, because I knew, okay, well then that's it. From this moment on, there will never be another song that I don't write completely honestly. Even if it's only inspired by true events, I am going to be I'm going to be very, very honest. I'm not going to lie about how I feel, and not honest in the way of like, telling everyone what happened, but honest in my emotions, and I think that really gave me a path and validation that like me as an artist, and my thoughts and my emotions and the way that I translate them into music is enough. It's enough. I don't have to please anyone but myself. And it is for me, and it's a really wonderful thing, because then once it's for you, everyone can relate to that. Everyone can relate to honesty when you're honest about real life stuff, like love is one of the most powerful emotions in the world. And it's really the closest thing we have to magic. And it inspires me to write the most music. And I think even the success or whatever it is, now I've been able to step back from it and say, okay, what will happen and what will be. All I really need to focus on is the music. And so I've definitely refocused in the past few months. And especially with quarantine, it's like it's kind of out of my control at that point, So I try to make it less about who all is listening and more about what is the content of the music and how good I think it is.
Right. Yeah. Like when you make that transition to just that brutal honesty, I just released a podcast this week with a girl named Serena Hendershot, Serena Draper Hendershot. She's like the director of one of the nonprofits in our area. She's my age.
Wonderful.
And we talked about both of us like going through suicidal ideation in high school. We talked about my drug abuse back in the day. We talked about her, like she experienced 3 family deaths, her ex-boyfriend being shot and killed.
Oh my God.
And then like all of these other things in the course of like 6 months. Right.
That's so
about just like how down, like how deep down in a hole she was. And then we're just like brutally upfront about the fact that we were like in a bad spot. But in order to convey to people, here's how you get out of it, they need to know about the pain.
Oh yeah.
right? And you can feel it like in your music, and the way that you convey it through your voice is one of the most beautiful things I think about music. And since the beginning of time, we've been, as humans, since I always say, ever since we figured out how to smack two sticks together and it makes we've been trying to use music to convey emotion. One of my close friends, Mark Leach, is a country singer, and one of his favorite songs, he wrote all in one sitting.
Yep.
In an apartment with no furniture in it after his grandfather passed away. And he wrote this song called If There's a Bar Up in Heaven. Right. And it is like, I listen to it every time I go to visit my grandpa at the cemetery and I have a beer with him. Right.
So sweet.
So deep and so intricate. And Mark is like one of the best guys that I know. He's the one that I told you that started writing music, making barbecue sauce in his parents' shop.
Yeah.
So that's Mark. But
wonderful.
Yeah, I love when you realize as an artist, when you get to that point where the raw honesty starts to really showcase itself, that's when music just
that's when you become an
elevates.
artist. Yeah. Because I mean, if you have a point of view and a perspective and a place, that's where you're writing from, you're an artist. Because everyone has a different perspective, and everyone explains and interprets their emotions a different way. And so when an artist can do that very honestly and create an organic sort of sound, then they will find an audience,
Right.
Because the human experience is so shared.
I kind of want to touch base on a couple of let's see here. There's a comment here that says, ask her about releasing What If, please. And
what if?
I'm not even really sure what that is. Is that a song?
What if? Oh, I'm trying to think. I have to go look through my TikToks because I've written so much over quarantine.
And that's fine. I just I saw that pop up and it wasn't something I'm familiar with, and I figured that I had done my relative amount of research into your TikToks.
Yeah, I'm blanking right now. I've written so much,
and that's a good problem to have, having all of those songs in the bank.
What if it's me? Oh, why do I?
Why do I? Okay.
Maybe it's me, maybe. So yes, why do I? There've been a few fan favorites on my TikTok. Why do I is one of them. I'm working on that right now. I'm trying to find a really good producer. Pascal's going to help me, I think, and he's going to be the one to produce it. But I've been struggling recording it because it is very much one of those anthems that needs to be gangy, like kind of Bad Blood, Taylor Swift. Like why do I always pick? And I want to do it healthily. And I've been a little nasally recently, so I'm still working on that vocal. But yes, I'm planning on releasing all of the music that I've been writing on TikTok at some point this year. There is no release date yet. But I think Trust Issues is going to be this summer. So everybody that's going
to be a summer banger, by the way. That song is going to be ridiculous. I am so amped for that to come out.
That's my baby. She's like my one song that I listen to, and I have a listener's ear on every single time I listen. It's stopped being like a bias thing. Like, it's just sort of undeniably, I wrote it in 5 minutes for a reason. It was truly exactly what everyone wants to hear because it's what I wanted to hear when I wrote it. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about that one.
Yeah. I read a comment on it not too long ago that said, I need this to slowly build up and then have a big ass bass drop. And I was like, okay, I could vibe with that.
Just wait. I've actually had it produced, and all I really need to do now is the final vocal. And I'm really, really excited about it.
Why don't this is actually kind of a perfect transition into TikTok itself. Why don't we talk about how you've learned to utilize TikTok as a testing ground for your music?
Yes. Back to that. So that really started with Crazy Girls and seeing that, things I'm writing, I can put on TikTok and gain traction as an artist. Like, people will be finding me because they like my music and what I'm writing, which is more than just them liking my voice. You know what I mean? It's very different. And I think from then on, I saw, okay, I can use this very beneficially, because if these are the people that are going to be listening to my music, I should start to sort of test and see what they like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And because it will also help me determine what I put on my album, because everybody kind of guesses when they put out an album. Like, artists write 80 songs for an album, like hundreds of songs. And then they have their label whittles it down to 13, 14 songs. And then you just sort of cross your fingers and pray, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And because no one really knows anything about anything, even labels, you can't really predict success. They can try, but, you know, people will surprise you all the time, because the audience is always changing. The music's always changing. And what everyone is into is determined by what the world is going through at the time, you know? So the fact that I can put a 1-minute snippet of a verse and a chorus, which is basically what the song will sound like throughout the whole thing, so people can kind of imagine what it's going to sound like and get their opinion and get their ideas, because my followers are smart and they listen to music, and they genuinely love my music and want me to be successful. So I know when they're giving me constructive criticism, I mean, like, it's meant to help me, you know? It's never like a hate comment. It's always so constructive and gives me so much to think about. So that even if I'm just releasing it because I just wrote this verse and chorus and that's it, it will also inform the rest of the song for me. It also helps me write the rest of it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience of growing organic followers and actually making connections and friendships with those followers, because they're all so talented in their own way, you know?
Yeah.
I think listeners are the smartest people. You should get listeners' opinions always, because there's listeners to regular pop music. It's like, okay, that's really good to know that they're really into it. But then there's listeners to, you know, different kinds of genres, and also people who have more of an idea of like, okay, structurally, how good is this song structured, or, you know, how intricate, or like almost critic like. And so having both of those sides of the coins represented in my followers it's been wonderful, you know? It's been the best for my music too.
Yeah, you have an access to a beta testing ground that a lot of people don't have. And that's what I'm trying to put out. So, Mark, if you're listening to this, I have been yelling at you for months now to get on TikTok.
Get on TikTok, Mark.
I want you to watch this video and take Abs' advice and get on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
I even offered, I was like, dude, give me videos. I will cut them up and put them on TikTok for you. I just need you on TikTok, because I love country music, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't care if it's just a G, C, A, and a D chord. You know, country is more about the story than it is the intricacy of the music.
Good country music is all about storytelling.
It is all about storytelling. And then when people are like, oh my God, it's the same 4 chords, I'm like, okay,
whatever.
Do you understand what the music is about?
Right.
But I've been telling Mark, like, dude, your music is phenomenal, right? You have this good following.
Put it up on TikTok. The worst case scenario is that you don't get any you know, input. But the best case scenario is that someone reaches out to you from a label. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
TikTok is that powerful these days.
Right.
And
especially in music.
I mean, there are huge artists on TikTok that follow me now. Women that I've looked up to for years in my formative years of writing and teenage years. Meghan Trainor, JoJo, like the JoJo, not JoJo Siwa.
What?
And it just blows my mind, because these women have informed my entire childhood, you know?
Right.
And it's that powerful. Everybody's on it now. You should be on it, Mark.
I cannot count the number of times I listened to Too Little Too Late as a kid.
Oh my gosh.
Like, she is absolutely phenomenal.
She's insane. You know, she recorded Get Out when she was 13. Like, that music video, she was 13.
What?
Yes.
13?
I
had no idea she was that young.
Oh, young. She's 29 now.
Force of nature.
She's a freak of nature. She is crazy talented.
God. Okay.
Her new album's also a bop, by the way. If you guys haven't listened to it, you should. She's got a new album out.
Small plug
for JoJo.
All right. So to wrap all of this up, I mean, we're getting close to our hour time frame here. why don't you can give us a little bit of like where things that you need to plug, places where you're heading into the future. I know, Trust Issues is going to come out. I'll make sure that all of my followers have a good pulse on when that's going to drop, because I'm going to be jamming to it in my Silverado.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we got? What do we got to look forward to from Abs?
So all of the things that I've been writing and putting on TikTok are for a longer project that I'm planning, and it's going to be sort of an album type of deal. But before that, I'm going to be releasing a few singles, a few things that people are waiting for, people are dying for. So Trust Issues is one of them. I think Nobody Cares is probably one of them. It's another fan favorite. Why Do I is probably one of them. And I think the album will be towards the end of this year, the full thing, because I really want to have just a wealth of songs to choose from and really pick the best ones. But yeah, Trust Issues is something you should look out for. But I will always let you know. Like I'll never just drop something out of the blue or quietly. Like I will promote it, and it will be very obvious that I'm going to release something. So all you really need to do is follow my social medias, especially my Instagram, and put the notifications on for grid posts, because normally I don't really post on the grid posts unless it's for promotion, or I haven't posted in a while if there's something like a new song that I've written. So follow that, and also follow my Spotify. And I think you can do something where I'll give pre-save links so you can actually be notified when it's available for save, and it would automatically save to your Spotify. So that's for when releases do happen. But yeah,
most definitely. All of those links will be posted. So the beautiful thing is that this live stream, guys, is going to end up being translated into a podcast episode on the Apex. And all of those links that she talked about, we're going to make sure that those links are in the description so that they're easily accessible, and you guys can go ahead and follow all of those different accounts. Definitely advocate, if you're not on TikTok, to get on there, because if you're not, you're falling behind the times.
Join us. Join us.
Actually, my plug for that from my side of the house is come to the dark side first off. But the entire reason why this happened is because I was on a live stream watching. I think you were like singing a new verse to something. It was at like
2 a.m. 2 in the morning.
It was like super late at night, and I'm a night owl anyway. And there was like 70 people in the live stream. I was like, I'll just throw out the idea about a podcast. And then A led to B, and here we are. So for those of you that don't think that TikTok is applicable in business, tell that to my 35,000 followers.
Boom. Boom.
And that's the tip of the iceberg. Girl, you got like 800 plus thousand, but 35,000 is functional for what I'm doing, because I'm not an artist or anything like that. I just needed to be able to prove a concept with a social platform.
It's a jumping off point. I mean, TikTok, you can literally do anything with that following you want. It will help you in so business, everything.
And the whole the testing grounds and everything like that is just, don't be afraid to be raw. That's what it's all about. If you take anything from this entire conversation that we've had today, just don't be afraid to be yourself.
Yep.
Right. Go out. If you have something that you're passionate about and you want to pursue it, first of all, it's not a right to be able to do that. Everybody has the option. Everybody should have the option. I understand there's inequality and there's all these other things. If we take all of that out, you have the right to pursue it. Right. But you don't have the right to succeed at it. That's a privilege.
Yep, absolutely.
You have to earn that.
Yeah.
So the number of people that I've encountered, especially in the last 6 months, that are like, oh, like, how are you doing this? Like, I could definitely do that. And I'm like, then why aren't you doing it? Go do it.
Yeah. There's nothing stopping you. You
just start.
It's scary, but it can be scary because it feels overwhelming. But if you take it one day at a time, if you decide to dedicate yourself to learning something, learning a new trade, even though it might make you feel like a beginner, one day you're going to look back and you're going to thank yourself so much that you had the gumption to do it yourself, and that no one had to help you. You could be self-sufficient all on your own and be successful. And it's even more possible than it ever has been in the music industry, because you can release things on Spotify without a label and reach your own audience organically, which is arguably the best way to become an artist. So that is what I pray that these young artists are listening when I say you can do it yourself if you want to. You just have to work really hard at it, and it has to be something that like you would die for, and you will always succeed if you work hard.
Agreed. So for those of you that want to learn more about Abs, her TikTok and her Instagram are down there at the bottom. Abs, of course. Make sure that you go ahead and follow that. I will be posting the link to her Spotify. Go ahead and follow that as well, and make sure that you turn on the notifications for when she drops a song. For the rest of you, the rest of this week, actually tonight, later on, I will be live streaming again with a gentleman named John Dietz, and we're going to be giving advice to parents on raising children.
Wonderful.
He is a phenomenal human. He has constantly, he's been like a dad to me ever since we met. He hosts a podcast with us now, and we're just he wants to drop some wisdom. I think one of the questions that we're asking him, or that he's going to talk about, is kids will only cost you what you have. They'll never cost any more. People always think about money and everything else when they're trying to have children. He's like, kids are worth every penny, and they'll only cost you what you have available.
Right.
Outside of that, the next time we'll be live streaming is next Tuesday with hashtag Let's Talk About Something Else with the Miss Kathy Yaros. And until next time, this has been another live stream on the Apex Communications Network. Abs, as always, thank you for coming on, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Yes, thank you. Bye, guys.